We'll get that to shut off.
Yeah, I don't miss that. All righty, looks like we're live on YouTube. So I'd like to call the November morning meeting of the Waltham Trustees to order at this point. Looks like it's about 11:05 on, or excuse me, 1:05 on my clock. And looks like we have a full quorum of the trustees currently serving. And with that in mind, I'd like to call the minutes of the previous meeting. I had just one perhaps typo on the circulations statistics. I'd have an extra S on there.
I will take that off.
Alrighty, other than that, they look good to me. Anybody else have any suggestions or corrections?
I move to accept the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Change.
Second.
Alrighty, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Clearly carries. Alrighty. And the expenditure report. I take it the report is just one page this time, or in the current format is just one page.
Yes, because this is the official, this is just the city document, so it's showing you the final breakdown of the 5,200. That's primarily what we're focused on, the operating accounts.
Yeah.
See that we're just under 30% spent for the fiscal year. Feels about right.
At 4 months in, about 33%, 30%, sure. Looks
Correct.
good.
You'll notice, we talked about this before, but the percentages expended column all the way over to the right, it's sort of very out of whack just because we haven't broken down our operating expenses. The city did not operate it. They gave us a lump sum versus individual amounts in those accounts like we normally do. So that's why those percentages look a little skewed. But the bottom line, that highlighted bold print, is really where we are, about 30% expended. I'm happy to answer any individual questions about this or what this looks like.
I guess the big question I have is how are we doing as far as supplies for the PPP and cleaning and all of that for everybody? We in good shape to continue on for the year?
We are. Thank you. That's a great question. We are doing very well. We have a nice, my instinct is to look behind me because I have a backup pile in the corner of my office. But we actually have quite a large amount. Actually, I will show you just for fun.
Oh, there you go.
They like, how are we doing on hand sanitizer? We're a little low down here. And I was like, oh, we have hand sanitizer.
So we have hand sanitizer for you.
Hand sanitizer. So no, we have a lot of great backup stock. We've got the face shields, gloves, masks. Most of our staff, I would say most of our staff uses their own mask from home, the cloth masks. I think people have their own sort of personal preference, but we feel, I feel we're in a really great position with that. So we certainly spent more on PPE this year than any other years, but
Well,
it's so comfortable about us, our stockpile. We should be good.
Good.
Do we have spare masks down by the front, by the pickup door if somebody shows up and forgot their mask and doesn't have it in their car or whatever?
We do, and it's funny you should mention that because now that the colder weather is here, it just came up in our department head meeting yesterday, the internal library managers meeting. A couple of people have come in with just scarves, and we wanted a little clarification on if that was okay or not. And so we sort of agreed. You really, the CDC says it really needs to be a mask. So we did actually clarify that we would email the staff that they should feel free to offer our patron a mask if they needed one when they came in to pick up their holds. So yeah,
Okay.
I do feel like we have enough. We can certainly share if somebody ran out and forgot their mask. That's not a problem.
Okay.
It actually happens very, very rarely. That's not a normal situation, and we're happy to share so we can get people their material.
Good. All right, and how are we doing on our overdrive and electronic subscriptions? Because I'm sure that usage there will be up as we hear about the statistics for that. But are our payments on subscriptions okay on that?
Yeah, everything is Going well with that. Again, we've been sort of, we've been paying a lot of attention to our, I'm sorry, I'm just looking to see if I have that readily right in front of me, but we've been spending a lot of time, I mentioned this before, looking at our materials budget and making sure our spending is allocated from what patrons really want so that the wait times are down both for imprint materials and e-materials. We've made a couple of changes just to bulk up the e-materials budget. That spending that educational materials doesn't break it down line item that way, but we do have that data to kind of show. We've spent a little bit less on music just because patrons are streaming music mostly. So CD budget is down a little bit. So we've actually transferred some of that CD budget over to e-materials for streaming services. And we also did that with our audiobook budget, because while they usually move a lot more when we're open, everybody is streaming those audiobooks. So we've transferred over some money to those accounts as well, but we're paying very close attention. I apologize if I have been repeating this, but we did come up with a plan for, worst case scenario, nobody's even talking about this, but if we were ever to shut back down again and sort of be ordered at home, we have a plan ready in place to transfer over all of our orders to e-materials. We'll at least get people access to that and reallocate our spending per week. So I actually feel very relieved that at least we have the worst case scenario. Again, nobody's thinking that way, but at least we have a plan in place this time versus kind of going into it blindly and having to pivot so quickly.
Oh, good. Any other questions on the expenditure report? There are none. Accept the motion to place the report on file.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Clearly carries. And let's see, report on library operations.
I just realized, I don't think I sent out the October stats because they were not ready last week, but I do have them. So if you just give me 1 minute. Open those up.
All right, why don't we jump down to new business for a sec while you're pulling those up. I attended a couple of trustee trainings over the past week with the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, and I'd like to say I'm continue to be so happy with what a great bunch of colleagues that we have on the board here, and such a friendly and strong Friends organization as well, is in addition to support by the city council and the mayor. Sometimes you hear some stories alluded to, nobody really gets into detail, and I just, every time I'm there, I'm thinking how nice it is we don't have some of those side issues to have to deal with. But with that in mind, I think it's been quite a while since we've looked at our bylaws as trustees, and many of you being newer or relatively newer may not have had the privilege of receiving one of these Mass Library Board of Trustees
I got mine.
handbooks back in the day when they used to actually hand out printed handbooks that are a couple inches thick, because it's all online these days. And I thought it might be useful just to take a look and see that we're, aware of where our authority and all that comes from, and review our own operating procedures as by the bylaws. So I thought maybe that might be something to take a look at starting in January, so that we're not loading anybody up before the holidays, but to look at the part of the city ordinance that authorizes us as trustees, and a quick look at the state law, chapter 78 of the general laws that authorizes or regulates library operation. And then at some point take a look at open meeting laws and that sort of thing. So maybe once a month we'll take a look at those various items. Kelly and I will work on getting them loaded up and circulated to y'all and that sort of thing. In the interim, And also wanted to take a look at with the COVID in our minds and with the propensity to be having more hurricanes than in the past, and floods and that sort of thing, to review our disaster plan, which is part of our long-range planning proposal. It has been addressed, but I think it's been quite a number of years. It's not that it's anything like we have to be getting down there with mops and sponges in our hands, but one of the biggest things is just to be ordering flash freezing of everything that gets wet, essentially. But just wanted to make sure that we're all aware of what the plan is, that one exists, and that we've been doing a nice job dealing with the curveball that COVID spun us. So just kind of looking forward as an organization and a structure, where we're headed and what we're doing. Not seeing any problems per se, but just so that we're all aware of what we have to do. So we'll start that in January and be getting the info for you in the interim.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a plan.
All righty, yeah. Not too much homework, hopefully, but enough to feel like we're comfortable with our structure. Well, Kelly, was that good?
That's great. Perfect.
Great.
And I apologize. I am going to send these out to you afterwards, but it's the October stats, and I'm going to just run through the highlights. Adult total circ in October was 17,250. The teen circ was 393, and the children's circ was 10,330 for a total of 27,977. We're down about 36%, obviously, taking into consideration we're not open our normal hours and we don't have patrons in the building. But overall, I feel pretty good about this. I think the staff is really doing as much as they can to get material into the hands of the public. Certainly the children's room, they are actually creating, we've talked about those book bundles. They're doing 40 book bundles a day just to keep up with the demand. And
Wow.
Wow, that's great.
That's great.
yeah, and those are just the blind bundles, right? That doesn't include any, when a patron calls up and says, I'd like a set of books on these topics. It's just kind of a grab and go situation. So that's phenomenal. And the 10,000, that's almost half of our, that's a really high number, I think, of circ, even within our limited hours. And I wanted to mention that we, in terms of our ranking, Waltham was 14, so we've jumped up. We want to obviously try to be in the top 10, so we're 14th ranking circ in Minuteman. But it's not a fair comparison just because a lot of the libraries that we are comparing ourselves against are not red communities, and they are open more hours, and some of them are allowing a little bit of some limited browsing in their building. So I think comparatively, I'm not actually too disappointed in what our numbers are doing. We're averaging about 52. 1 week in October, we're averaging about 550 visits a week for people to come in and check out material, which is, this is our first pandemic, so we don't have a lot to compare it to, but it's a pretty, I think a pretty considerable number. We had a week in, towards the end of October where we saw almost 600 visitors a week. So that number is actually growing a little bit, which is nice to see. I don't want to move too quickly. I'm not sure if you have any individual questions. I'm just making a note that I send this out to you after this, but yeah, any specific questions about circulation
What was
statistics?
the daily number you just said, or was that weekly?
I'm sorry, tell me again.
The number of visits, what was the?
It's averaging between 550 to 600 a week.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So 100 a day.
100 a day, yep. Also, just really quickly to review the e-stats, still really high. And one thing I actually did want to focus on is right now, Waltham is holding steady at the number 7 rank for most e-materials circulated in the network, which I think is a really great number. That's we are not the largest library in, so to be number 7 is, I think, really amazing. We've been doing a lot of work at Minuteman to pay attention. Every library is paying attention to e-materials during a pandemic for sure, but we're looking at a lot of how we buy collectively as a consortium and how individual libraries manage their Advantage account to try to really get a hold on, it's kind of like a little library joke there, but how much money we're spending and how long people are waiting for their hold. And I wanted to just pull this up really quickly, but we look really good. Our spending is where it's supposed to be spending. We talked about this a little bit last month, but we're focusing a little bit more on cost per circ, which means that we're getting rid of wait lists for a lot of items. So people were just paying per use, which is a different model. And we've been doing tons of recording a lot of data so that we'll really be able to evaluate how this process goes in the next few months, because it might be a model we'd want to stick with moving forward. So in other words, instead of buying a licensed book where people wait their turn to read it online, to read it online or download, where it's unlimited access and we're paying per use, which is cheaper, but we also have to manage that so that we don't spend $1 million on one specific title. Does that make sense? We spend a lot of time on it. Just enough, okay, to talk about it, but I think it's very confusing if you're not talking about it very regularly.
So from the standpoint of the user, then they're getting faster, more likely access. Is that?
Yep. And a really easy way to think about it is when we do our book groups, we've been trying to find titles that are available that you can download. And what we do is we make that title available to everybody immediately through this cost per circ. So we give people for a brief period of time, unlimited access to get that book. And then we move it back under just a meter use. So you may actually have to wait for it, but everybody who wanted that book for book group has immediate access for it. And then just trying that on a large scale as well. And really great results.
I see.
We're down, people are still waiting, but our hold times are significantly down and we are just devoting a ton of energy onto this. The reference staff and tech services team they have devoted a lot of time and energy to this, so I'm very proud of them. And our spending is right on par. We had a very interesting conversation at Minuteman to look at what libraries are spending. We have a set amount that we give to the consortium as part of our membership fee to buy for Overdrive, and then most of the libraries have an Advantage collection, which means Waltham patrons get those items that we buy through Advantage first. And then we share them after a specific time period. It's typically about 6 months to a year, as long as no Waltham patrons are waiting for that item. But our spending was right on par for our circulation. So that felt really good. Some libraries, this is not a criticism. This is the first time we've looked at this data in this breakdown. So I think it was just educational for everybody. But I was very relieved that our spending was right on par, because it means that we are tracking, we're putting the money into what the patrons actually want.
We want.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Groups, are these both audiobooks and ebooks?
Yes, this is basically everything on Overdrive very
Okay.
specifically. Hoopla,
Who's the librarian to contact about that? Because I'm with a book group over at the Council on Aging.
yeah.
And sometimes we have to shuffle a little bit to find enough copies for different places.
Okay, you can actually, if it's easier, you can just email me directly and I will
Okay.
send it for you. That's not a problem at all. Yeah. and
Right,
if
okay.
any other books in Waltham, we work with a lot of book groups in Waltham, but if there's any of, this is a great, as long as the book is available in Overdrive, this is a really great option for people. So that
Okay.
you're waiting.
Great, we'll do.
Okay, on the paper books,
Yeah.
the paper download, is that limited to Waltham residents or anybody in Minuteman are we paying for during that time?
This is Advantage, so it's starting with, that's a great question. It is starting with Waltham patrons.
Okay, so during the time that it's open for the paper for that few months or whatever, if somebody's from another town, they don't get we don't pay for the paper. They just have to get in line for when the general license is on.
Correct.
Thank you.
When we do put the cost per circ on, though, we monitor that very aggressively, just to make sure, though, that we are not having, if there was 1 million Waltham residents that wanted one book, we couldn't do cost per circ. But it does make sense for really hot titles, Where the Crawdads Sing,
Yep, that's
Yeah,
it.
that's it. It's like,
Where the crawdads thing is a good example where we turned on cost per use to lessen some of the holds. So this is just an example off the top of my head, but if there were 50 people waiting for that ebook, there's actually like 1 million people, but there was 50, we might turn on cost per use and clear out the first 25 holds. So there's only 25 people waiting for X number of copies that we've already bought, if that makes sense. So instead of waiting 3 years to get a copy of that ebook, we've already cut that wait list in half, and now it's a little more manageable. So we have some ratios we try to look at, similar to when we're buying print books, how many holds per how many copies that we're buying. So when we first started talking about it, I got very nervous about, it sounded like a very dangerous spending plan, and that makes me nervous, but I have been since convinced this is a much better model. And I think I mentioned this last month too, but our tech services and reference staff department heads have actually been talking to some other Minuteman libraries and explaining how we do it because we've had such great results. That's always nice to show off a little bit.
that's great.
Well, great. It's a brave new world out there.
Yes.
Well, it's new, brave, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Right. Well, another couple of months, hopefully, it will be.
Yeah.
Personnel?
No changes in personnel. We are looking to hopefully fill a couple positions that become vacant this fiscal year. So we've sent that paperwork down to the city. So hopefully we'll be hearing back on that.
Okay.
Um,
Minuteman, you did have some references to Minuteman. Any other news on that front? Or?
no, that was sort of the big change from Minuteman. Not a big change, but just sort of the direction that we've been
Okay.
about.
And
I'm sorry to interrupt. I do want to mention too that one of the big things, we just had our Minuteman meeting yesterday, the membership meeting. And we did spend a little bit of time just talking about people's sort of COVID experience and managing a library. And people relatively seem to be in the same, same boat as Waltham. Obviously, things are a little bit different in communities that are not red status, that are allowing a little bit more minimal browsing. But it seemed generally that people were mostly on the same wavelength about just the processes that people have in place for managing COVID.
okay. Okay. And let's see, any news on the Friends?
I have some news on the Friends. We had our meeting last week, our November meeting, and that was a great meeting. One of the things that had come up with that was they are going to fund a pilot program that Kim Hewitt, who's the head of circulation, had really developed, is continuing to develop, but it's a pilot program to offer bus passes to neighboring libraries. I'm reading my notes, but I should have printed out the whole policy. But the idea being that because some of our neighboring libraries are allowing people to browse and come into the building, and we are unable to do so due to COVID, for patrons who can't get to those other libraries, it is sort of inequitable. Not sort of, it is inequitable service. In other words, if you have a car or the means of transportation, you can get to these libraries and still access them. That's part of one of the really great benefits of being a consortium. But because we do have a lot of patrons in Waltham who aren't able to just hop into a car and maybe drive down the street to another neighboring library, we're going to offer some bus passes on a limited basis for people to reach those other locations. So it's still, we're going to roll it out very slowly and just get some data on it. But the Friends were very willing to give it a try. There are some other libraries, particularly the Dallas Public Library, that actually circulate bus passes. They have a whole system set up, and we're sort of mimicking their system. We really want to get more data and see if there's a real need for it in the community. We tried it before even bringing this to the Friends, we did a little light test. We just grabbed a couple of bus passes and offered them to people who really had a pressing need. And people took them very willingly, not everybody, but there were a couple of people that we were able to help that way. So we're excited to see what that is. The goal is just to get people the services that they need. So that's a good update on the Friends and a little bit of new business.
Any news on trying to increase the hours of operation to include evenings and weekends?
Yeah, the response from the city is that it's not safe to do so at this time. So we're going to stick with the Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. Waltham's numbers still do not look great, although I know that the governor has adjusted some of the formulas to come up with the red, yellow, or green communities. And I think we look a little bit better that way, but our numbers are still pretty high. So that is a concern. So the
Okay, so
city-
we would need clearance from the Department of Public Health, is that it?
correct. Yep. And
Yeah.
yep.
Alrighty.
But it is certainly my highest priority. It remains the highest priority on the list.
Well, good. Hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later, but it's nice to hear that the safety remains the highest concern.
For sure. Yep.
Alrighty, let's see.
I have
Go ahead. Yep,
I was just going to say I have a couple of new business items.
great.
I do want to mention we got a new wireless printing system, which is working a lot better than the old wireless printing system that we had in the library. So I'm very glad that we upgraded that. We do have patrons who want to come in and print, who want to print something either from home or their car or their phone, and they can just come right in and, or they can do it ahead of time and then just come in and pick it up. So that's working much better. We made a switch over from Comcast to Verizon. We got a better service plan through Minuteman and saved a little bit of money with much better speed. So we're excited about that for the building. That actually just got implemented this week. So that is really great news. The book drops are officially opened. This was something that the quarantining, we were only working with the blue bins, but we have a system in place now to safely quarantine the items in the book drop. So we are going to just keep them.
Oh, good. So that'll open, make it more accessible for people outside of working hours then.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
To know.
We are starting to review website analytics, although we don't have a ton of data. We're getting a lot of great early feedback from the website, which I am excited about. I did want to mention we had gotten some really great feedback about some of the children's programs. We had a lot of people talking about us on a couple of different Facebook pages talking about our spooky science take and make craft kits, which was really great. A couple of families, you can't see it super well, and I don't want to, but we got a couple of cute pictures that they sent our way, which we were delighted to have. And the children's room did a pumpkin decorating contest, and we bought pumpkins for people who needed to grab one from the library. And we were able to give out 38, where's my page? I'm so sorry, hold on. Yes, 38 pumpkin contestants, and all 38 were able to walk away with a prize. Very cute.
We had 38 winners, huh?
It was too hard to choose. They all did such a great job. And lots
Did you
of
say the library provided the pumpkins?
we did, yeah.
That's
Yeah, we
awesome.
used some of our, I
Very
should say,
good.
we provided the pumpkins. We used some of our Halloween budget from them this year. And make sure everybody who needed a pumpkin could get one. So it was great. The children's room, they haggled for those pumpkin prices. I was very impressed. I was at a store and I saw their pumpkin prices and I was like, these are amazing pumpkin prices. We should have called this store. And when I mentioned to the children's room just for the future, they were like, our prices were even better than that. You forget. We haggled them down even more. So I was very, they got possibly the best pumpkin price in New England. Sorry,
Did anybody see the pumpkin carving contest on James Corden?
No.
They held it on the roof, and whenever a pumpkin lost the one-on-one showdown, the pumpkin went over the edge of the roof. I assume our judges were a little kinder.
Very kind, very kind, yes. Another big thing at the library is that the city actually did a big light installation project. They actually replaced a lot of our lights with LED lights that are on automatic sensors. And I can't really show you now, especially because when it's bright out, but the lighting is so much better in the library. I think it's made a huge difference. And I've been talking about the lighting for a while, particularly up on the second floor. It's kind of dim. When you come up at night too, when it's not the daytime, I just felt like the lighting could always be a lot stronger. And it looks wonderful. I can't wait to have people back in the building because I think it's a noticeable difference how much brighter it is while you're looking at the materials. So that was a big project that got finished while we were closed. If you did not see it on Facebook or Instagram, we had a chipmunk invade the Waltham room.
Oh, no.
And you should go online and see it. It's so funny. Deb and Kim found the chipmunk in the Waltham room. He had climbed in through a window and they captured him. But our video cameras have the whole thing, so they made a cute little video of it.
Oh, jeez.
He has been escorted back outside to his home, but we got a lot of sweet comments on social media. People loved that cute story. It was very funny. And I shared with you Luke Kirkland, the teen department head's article in the American Libraries magazine, and it's a fabulous spread starring talking about the Real Talk program here at the library, and a really wonderful photo of Iris. And I think I had mentioned to you, he had emailed me about this, and I hadn't read the email yet, and I was reading American Library magazine, and I'm looking at it going, Iris, like, why is she in the magazine? And I realized what it was, and I was super excited. So it was nice to kind of read it without even, although Luke had let me know, I had just spaced on it. So it was just like a nice surprise to reach and read the magazine and see that story. A really nice write-up. I did email that to all of you, didn't I?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Just checking it. I thought I did. And then those wonderful, the ELL stories from Aaron's ELL classes, they did a wonderful job with that, and they're going to let us throw them on the website. So I'm excited to let other members of the communities hear about these responses to the work that they've been doing. And I did just really quickly, we had just last week let the survey go out one more time just to kind of get some feedback from the community on how we're doing. And I wanted to just share with you really quickly. We got overall some really, really nice comments from the patrons, and I'll put this together, a whole package for you to review, but just such nice comments from the patrons, and we are so grateful for their patience and for continuing to come here. A lot of comments that they are grateful to the staff. People feel very safe picking up items. You're doing an amazing job. Keep up the amazing work. You're all doing a fabulous job. Really, I mean, I would say the only real negative is just the fact, I think the lack of the nights and weekends, which I absolutely agree with. There's no, it's all valid criticism for sure. But I think people understand that we're trying to keep everybody safe, and overall very delighted by those survey results. And I think you'll be very happy when you read the whole document. And then I did want to just touch base on COVID, that we were, continuing to maintain all the safety standards that are set up by the health department and the CDC. And we regularly remind staff on what those standards are, just to keep everybody safe. But I think that the staff are overall doing a very good job of following that protocol. I think it's not easy to keep 6 feet. I mean, the masks seem to be a second nature now, but it's hard to, when you want to talk and engage with people, to limit those conversations in person and keep 6 feet, particularly with the patrons, whom we miss so much. So they're doing a really good job with that.
With the staff, when the staff's in the building, we're still able to comply with the governor's maximum people standards.
Yes, and even with the changes, because there were a slight rollback for the governor, that does not affect us, because we already had those.
Okay.
We're already meeting those safety guidelines already, so that there's no change in any of our protocol, but we are paying close attention to it. And actually, Steve, the one other thing I had written down that I did not mention was that you had asked last month, it goes by so quickly, just about our usage. So sorry, about Waltham patrons checking out materials and other non-Waltham patrons coming to Waltham to check out materials. I'm so sorry. I have it right in front of me. Just give me 1 second so I can pull it up.
Look a little to the left.
I'm embarrassed to tell you how many pieces of paper are on my desk. It looks.
Let's have a competition.
I'll beat you
So
all.
far as I can find my desk.
Well, you got to do like I do. Use the wall.
No more horizontal surfaces, just start going up the walls. Can I do that with the mic? in my kitchen.
Actually, that's all reference materials on the wall for different tax charts, and all sorts of different little things, just one-page jobs to look at that ends up sending me somewhere else.
I'm actually losing my mind, which is fun to do it live on YouTube so everybody can see. But the basic breakdown was, you had asked me in terms of our CERC being down, what percentage of our CERC when we're operating as normal are the patrons who are Waltham residents coming in, maybe people who work in Waltham using the library that way. And it was about a 10%. I literally just had this. I made a point to have it before the meeting. I have no idea what I've done with it, but it's about a 10% differential, if that answers your
Okay.
question. This is what I get for trying to do too many things at once, but it was about 10%, just to answer your question.
Thank you.
It's not a huge amount. I wish I could say it accounted for 50% of it, but I think it's a good sign that we get so many of our own patrons here. I will take that as a good sign.
Yeah.
About 10%.
I know all the patrons I've bumped into when I've come to pick up stuff or drop things off all still seem to be smiling. So just on that pure observation, it seems like things are going well with the public.
And they have been very, very patient with us, which is amazing. We are very grateful for that.
Great. Are we on unfinished business
Yes.
already?
I'm sorry, Steve, it was 7%. I have it right in front of me now, just to be very clear. Almost, just short of 10%, 7% difference. And under unfinished business, I have no updates about the art ownership.
Already.
I am going to someday have an update about that, but I do not have it right now.
And any announcements?
Can I make one?
Sure.
And I know I emailed all to you folks, but for those that are watching in Facebook and may remember Father Bill Mawhinney and his wife Jackie Mawhinney. Unfortunately, we lost Jackie Mawhinney last week. So I just wanted to let those folks that are following the library on Facebook to know that Jackie Mawhinney unfortunately passed away from us this past week.
Yeah.
And on another note, Joan Garner says hello to everybody.
Oh,
good.
nice.
I let her know about Jackie as well, because as those that don't know, Joan was on our board of trustees until not that long ago and was a close friend with Jackie and whatnot, and wanted to make sure she knew about it as well. So she says hello to everybody.
Thank you for doing that.
Nice.
You're welcome.
A true library lover, Jackie. Very, very kind and supportive. So my condolences to her family. I'm sure a huge loss and a tough time to go through that.
Steady show of dedication to the library. First Father Bill and Jackie as well. Many, many combined years of service. And do we have any announcements? Did we button down the 2021 closing dates calendar?
Oh, actually, we did not. I think we were supposed to vote on that. Thank you for the reminder. I'm sorry, yes, we were supposed to vote on that for the November meeting.
All right. Would you like to give us a quick oral review of the proposed dates?
I have them right here. I have them right here. Don't have them right here. But if you give me 1 second, I have them in
There
my.
were only 2 that had questions on them, question marks on them. I guess you can't really see it here, can you?
Oh yeah, well, it is pretty good. Yeah. Okay, so New Year's Day
Sorry.
is a Friday. Were we closing early New Year's Eve? I forget. I guess we're only on 5 o'clock anyhow. It's a Thursday. So. Okay,
Correct, yeah, so we would be, the weird thing about this, schedule, slightly weird, is just that we would be closed on, fully on Christmas Eve, because the holiday actually falls on a Saturday, so that means that it's recognized on a Friday as well. While typically we would close early that day, we will actually be closed on Christmas Eve because of when Christmas falls. And the same thing will be for New Year's Eve, because New Year's Day falls on a Saturday. It is recognized the Friday beforehand. Does that make
Okay.
sense for both of those dates?
Yep.
rather than the Monday afterwards.
Correct. And then with the staff meetings, we had tentatively put in those 2 dates. I'd like to leave them as placeholders. Obviously, everything due to COVID is up in the air. If we're able to have a staff day, that would be great. And if we're not able to pull it together, then we will just be open as normal, which is typically how we organize the staff days, but no major holidays or anything that bumps up against those dates.
Alrighty. Did you have any other notes or comments on that, Martha?
No.
No? Okay. Thanks for having that.
So basically, so in 2022, for example, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, we would close early, but we would be open during the day for the contract.
Okay. See, I guess I would accept the motion to accept the proposed calendar for 2021.
So moved.
Martha with a motion. Anybody with a second? Steve?
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No votes against. Motion clearly carries, and we've approved the calendar for 2021.
And since we're talking about calendars, just to confirm, December 10th will be the 1 p.m. Meeting as well. That's just to clarify, since we're all here.
Alrighty.
Okay.
And if there are any other comments or suggestions, now's a good time to bring them up. If not, we'd accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Have a good day.
I'm sorry, was that Martha or Maureen who seconded it?
Martha.
Martha.
I'm sorry?
Martha.
Martha.
Okay, thank you.
So have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody. Stay safe.
You
Be
folks
well.
as well.
You too.
Thank
Great.
you.
Take care.
We'll-
Thanks, everybody.